Well, hey there, it's Dolly, and I'm here to give you an update on a few things going on in my life. First, it's concerning my health, and I have some good news and a little bad news. But the good news is I'm responding really well to meds and treatments, and I'm improving every day. Now, the bad news is it's going to take me a little while before I'm up to stage performance level because some of the meds and treatments make me a little bit swimmy-headed, as my grandma used to say. And of course, I can't be dizzy carrying around banjos, guitars, and such on 5-inch heels. And you know that I'm going to be wearing them. From rags to rhinestones, I've been blessed with a life full of stories, and now I finally get to share them all with you in one place, My Life of Many Colors Museum. It's opening in 2026 at my Songteller Hotel in Nashville, and it's the biggest exhibit of yours truly that the world has ever seen.
There is something strangely unsettling about Dolly Parton's final weeks. Not because she looked like she was saying goodbye. Actually, it was almost the opposite. She was still planning things, still talking about new projects, still thinking about businesses, music, museums, hotels, coffee, and the next chapter. Just 4 days before her death, Dolly was publicly talking about her health, but she was also talking about the future. And that may be the hardest part of understanding what happened, because Dolly Parton didn't seem like someone preparing to leave. She seemed like someone who still had somewhere to be. On August 25th, 2026, Dolly Parton died at the age of 80 after what her representative described as a brief battle with cancer. She was surrounded by loved ones at Vanderbilt-Ingram Cancer Center in Nashville. But the story becomes much more emotional when you look backward, because the warning signs were there. They just didn't look like warning signs at the time. Earlier this year, Dolly had already canceled her planned Las Vegas residency after months of health problems. She had spoken about dizziness, dehydration, and other issues, and she had missed appearances because doctors advised her not to travel. But Dolly kept doing something she had spent her entire life doing. She kept working, and that is where this story becomes bigger than a celebrity death, because Dolly Parton had spent decades convincing the world that getting older did not necessarily mean slowing down. Her final public appearance was almost strangely fitting. It wasn't at the Grand Ole Opry. It wasn't a massive concert. It wasn't some glamorous Hollywood event. It was at a truck stop in Tennessee. Dolly showed up in June for the opening of Dolly's Tennessean travel stop, dressed in her unmistakable style and joking with the crowd. She talked about the road, about traveling, about giving people somewhere to stop, eat, rest, and feel welcome. At the time, it was just another Dolly moment. In retrospect, it feels almost poetic, because that appearance would become her final public appearance. And nobody watching that day knew just how little time she had left. But here's the strange thing. Even after her health problems became more obvious, Dolly was still building. She was preparing to open the Life of Many Colors Museum in Nashville. She was working on a new hotel. She was developing Cup of Ambition coffee. She was involved in new business projects. She was still thinking about how people would experience her music and her story after the traditional concert stage was no longer practical. Just days before her death, she told people that she had been dealing with some difficult health issues, including problems she felt she had neglected while caring for her husband, Carl Dean, before he died in 2025. She even joked about the way social media magnifies everything, and that's important, because Dolly understood something about celebrity culture that many celebrities never fully learn. People don't just watch you. They watch your health, your face, your absence, your silence. Every canceled appearance becomes a clue. Every hospital visit becomes a theory. Every photograph gets examined. And Dolly had spent decades controlling her own image so carefully that perhaps she understood better than most why some things needed to remain private. Then came the announcement: cancer. A word that suddenly rearranged everything people thought they understood about those final months. The postponed shows, the canceled appearances, the doctors telling her not to travel, the videos where she looked determined to reassure everyone, the sudden disappearance from public life. None of those moments necessarily told the whole story, because Dolly wasn't simply managing an illness, she was still trying to be Dolly, and that distinction matters.
Anybody want to go to a party with me? Well, they tell me they're having one 2 doors down, and they say we're all invited.
For most of her career, Dolly's greatest talent wasn't simply singing. It was making people feel better. She could walk into a room covered in rhinestones, make a joke about her appearance, talk about faith, talk about heartbreak, talk about business, and somehow make all of it feel strangely human. That may explain why her death has hit differently. There are celebrities who are famous, there are celebrities who are influential, and then there are very few people who somehow become part of the emotional furniture of an entire country. Dolly became that. Your mother knew Dolly. Your grandmother knew Dolly. Your children could know Dolly. Someone could discover Jolene today and still understand exactly what she was singing about. Someone else could hear 9 to 5 and immediately remember a completely different era. Someone could know her from Steel Magnolias. Someone else could know her from Dollywood. And millions of children may never have listened to one of her albums at all, yet still grew up surrounded by the books she helped put into their homes through Imagination Library. That's the unusual thing about Dolly's legacy. It doesn't live in one place. It lives everywhere. In music, in movies, in businesses, in theme parks, in children's bedrooms, in Nashville, in Tennessee, and perhaps most importantly, in the way people from completely different sides of American culture somehow claimed her as their own. Dolly was religious without becoming preachy. She was enormously wealthy without building her entire identity around wealth. She embraced glamour while laughing at herself. She became a feminist symbol without insisting on the label. She was embraced by LGBTQ audiences while maintaining a deeply traditional Southern image. And politically, she spent years refusing to become another celebrity whose entire identity was attached to a political tribe. That neutrality wasn't necessarily a lack of conviction, it was part of her strategy. Dolly seemed to understand that people didn't need her to tell them which team to join. They needed somewhere they could meet. And somehow, she created that place. Maybe that's why the reaction has been so enormous. President Donald Trump ordered American flags lowered to half-staff for a week in her honor, an extraordinary recognition for a private citizen. Meanwhile, musicians, actors, politicians, and fans across the cultural spectrum began remembering her. And suddenly, the thing Dolly had spent her entire career creating became impossible to ignore. She had built something that could survive her. The songs will continue. The movies will continue. Dollywood will continue. The books will continue arriving through Imagination Library. The businesses will continue operating. People will still sing, "I Will Always Love You." And somewhere, years from now, a child who has never heard the name Dolly Parton will open a book with her name attached to it. That may ultimately be the most Dolly thing of all. She didn't spend her life simply trying to be remembered. She spent it creating things that would remember for her. And maybe that's why her final chapter feels so strange, because Dolly Parton was still planning tomorrow when tomorrow never came. She was still dreaming, still building, still joking, still working, still trying to make the world a little brighter, until suddenly the woman who had spent more than 60 years giving people reasons to smile had left the stage. And for once, there was no next project, no new announcement, no postponed date, no future appearance to look forward to. Just the silence that follows when someone who felt almost permanent is suddenly gone. Dolly Parton was 80 years old, but somehow she never really seemed old. Maybe because she never stopped moving forward. And perhaps that is the final lesson in her story. You don't have to live forever to build something that does.